This is QTV News coming to you live from our studios on Kayaba Avenue. I am Jenna Bosonko. Thanks for joining us. Here are the main news headlines. Following a public notice by NAWEC that the security lock to one of the water tanks in Basse had been broken and unknown substances dumped inside the tank, the company's communications and public relations supervisor, Buba Baji, has shed light on the issue. QTV's Mamadou Lamin Choi is among 60 journalists from several countries around the world, currently in China for the 2023 China International Communication Center program. 45 law enforcement officers concluded training on Thursday on data quality and data protection in the use of the West African Police Information System. In international news, as hundreds of sub-Saharan African migrants are attacked or made homeless in Tunisia after a racist presidential speech last week, Guinea and Ivory Coast are repatriating hundreds of their citizens from the country. And in sports news, Gambia's under-20 football team are through to the semi-finals of the ongoing under-20 AFCON in Egypt, and their win means they also qualify for the World Cup. Those were the main headlines, and now the news in detail. Do stay with us. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV News, and I am Jenna Bosonko. Now, following a public notice by the National Water and Electricity Company, NAWEC, that the security lock to one of the water tanks in Basse had been broken and unknown substances dumped inside the tank, the company's communications and public relations supervisor, Buba Baji, has shed more light on the issue to Ali Public Affairs. Jildan Jai has more.
NAWEC's Communication and Public Relations Supervisor Buba Baji explains that water samples from the tank were taken to Abu Kolab for testing, and the results returned negative for any harmful substances. Mr. Baji says the water is therefore safe for drinking. Baji assured Gambians, especially those in Basse, that NAWEC is committed to providing safe water services to the public. In a public notice issued on Wednesday, NAWEC indicated that during a routine inspection by the staff working at the water tank, they realized that an unknown individual or individuals had broken the lock of the water tank and placed an unknown substance in the tank. The incident left consumers worried about their health, forcing many to buy bottled waters. Mr. Baji says the incident is unfortunate.
The tank, as we speak, is not operational. At the time of the incident also, the tank was not operational. So what we did was instantly we did a bypass. Now, if you understand bypass, that is, we are now not using the tank anymore. We are using the bypass to send water into the distribution system to the community. Yeah.
At the lab in Abuko, Mr. Baji says all the physiochemical and the microbiological parameters tested are within the recommended guidelines set by the World Health Organization for the quality of drinking water.
This is a wake-up call also to NAWEC, but I can assure you that the water is as safe as it before. And the NAWEC management is doing everything possible to make sure that, we give potable water to our customers.
According to the Communication and Public Relations Supervisor, NAWEC is planning to install CCTV at all the tank sites in the country, and their staff are working tirelessly to get the Basse situation under control.
Since we got the news on Wednesday morning, in the evening, they arrived in Basse, and then they have already started work on the tank, because already the objects have caused damage to the tank. It have punctured and break part of the inner liner, because the tank is an iron, but there's an inner lining where that contains the water. All that is security. But now that have been cracked, and then works are on the way to do that. And then after that, we'll go ahead with our procedures to chlorinate and disinfect the water before we can start drawing water into the tank, and then before filling the tank and then sending supplies out there. Yeah.
Mr. Baji acknowledges that the National Water and Electricity Company also faces numerous challenges.
The major challenges, in every entity for us is finance. If I say finance, we have a lot of things to do, and then the expectation from us, because we're the only company tasked by the Gambian people to supply electricity and water. And then imagine from Carton to Koina, everybody needs it. And then that's definitely a big challenge. And then the other challenge would be settlement of bills. People encouraging into now properties damage and do things, because a year ago, it was like every 2 days they will damage one borehole, and it will cost now a huge amount of money just to repair back. And then it's a national property. It belongs to all of us. So the challenges are there, but with the help of the Gambia government and the guidance of our Ministry of Petroleum Energy, we are definitely mitigating them step by step.
Meanwhile, NAWEC has already deployed a team to Basse to further monitor and investigate the incident, which is also being investigated by the Gambia Police Force. The public is urged to inform the police if they suspect any suspicious activities in relation to this incident. For QTV News, I am Julden Jai.
QTV's Mohamed Lamin Choi is among 60 journalists from several countries around the world currently in China for the 2023 China International Communication Center program organized by the China Public Diplomacy Association. The program offers journalists an insight into China's socio-economic development, diplomacy, science and technology, as well as culture of its people. He files this report from Beijing.
This is the first batch of journalists to arrive in China to attend the China International Press Communication Center program since the COVID-19 pandemic and the easing of COVID-related restrictions. 60 journalists from 51 countries in Africa, Asia Pacific, the Caribbean, Central and Eastern Europe are in Beijing for the 4-month-long program. It is a platform that allows journalists to explore and acquire an understanding of China, its history, culture, diplomacy, and its socio-economic development. In that, journalists will be covering and reporting on major diplomatic and domestic events, visit several places in the country, attend symposiums with government departments, think tanks, and media organizations. There will also be journalism training courses and internships with media organizations in China. This year's International Press Communication Center program coincides with domestic political events such as National People's Congress and the National Committee of the Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference. The political structures are the highest organs of state power and China's top legislative and advisory bodies. The NPC and CPPCC sessions are set to commence this weekend. Journalists in the media exchange program will have an opportunity to cover and report back home on developments from the proceedings of the two sessions. The International Press Communication Center program was first launched in 2014 and was put on hold due to the COVID-19 pandemic and its restrictions. 2 Gambian journalists, one from QTV and one from a local newspaper, are among the participants in this year's China International Press Communication Center program. These journalists from around the world are now set to explore and report on the world's second largest economy that has much to share with a global audience. Mohamed Lamin Choi, QTV News, reporting from China's capital, Beijing.
Have a nice day, Mohamed Lamin Choi. Now, away from that, 45 law enforcement officers concluded training on Friday on data quality and data protection in the use of the West African Police Information System. The aim is to prevent transnational crime and terrorism in West Africa. Lena Igwenyiba has more.
The West African Police Information System, WAPIS, is a multi-annual program funded by the European Union and implemented by Interpol to improve the capacity of West African law enforcement agencies through enhanced information management and sharing. Commissioner Lamin LK Bojang of the Gambia Police Force underscores the significance of WAPIS in the security sector.
Quality data helps in better operation planning. It also helps in informed strategic policy formulations. And I believe having 45 personnel from the security services and forces of the Gambia will translate to and enhance data for better security of this country.
WAPIS will enable security officials to create, manage and share files connected to crimes and offenses. Data includes criminal cases and events, suspects, victims and witnesses, legal proceedings, weapons and objects, vehicles, identity documents, among others. Mohamed Yansane, Program Coordinator at the ECOWAS Commission, is confident that participants will utilize the knowledge gained to collect, register and share quality data while adhering to the principles of data protection.
We are hopeful that with this training that has been delivered and with the level of preparedness from the participant, that is going to add value to the process of data collection, registration, storage, and sharing within the Gambia, and that will subsequently, or by extension, at the regional level and international level as well.
The WAPIS program targets West African countries, including the 15 ECOWAS member states and Mauritania, the only West African country which is not an ECOWAS member. 12 of these countries in West Africa sit on the Atlantic Ocean, making the region especially attractive to criminals as a transit hub between Africa, Europe and the Americas. Lamin N. Bajinka, Director of WAPIS Gambia, has this advice for the participants.
A training like this on data protection and then data quality is one of the best. It's a key. Whatever we learn here during the course of this training, we put it into practice. And as the saying goes, whatever you learn, do not keep it to yourself.
Babu Karandau, a participant who delivered the vote of thanks, highlights how the use of WAPIS will ensure their work is carried out effectively and efficiently.
WAPIS project comes at a right time as crime rates increases. So as the crime rates are increasing, we are also making our measures, whereas we will reduce the crimes. The easiest way to combat criminal activities and crime rates is information sharing, and that is what we've done today.
The WAPIS program supports the efforts of national authorities and ECOWAS to improve the security of citizens in West Africa and is being implemented at 3 levels: national, regional and global. Reporting for QTV News, I am Lena E. Igwenyiba.
Now from that story by Lena E. Igwenyiba, we will now go for a short commercial break, and when we come back, we have some international as well as sports news. Don't go anywhere.
Alhaji Siddiq Labo ntenga vaccination otale adum bal fan yamarale vaccination ota men sin tanka na banko kan ayen so jati ken leala.
Modu came in to buy some bathroom floor tile, but once he laid eyes on our basins, he fell in love with a stunning basin and with a breathtaking faucet. With a brand new mirror too, at a bargaining price.
So, I got a bathtub too.
Oh yes, he picked up a bathtub too.
And yes, that's Batimat's Bati Days. Take advantage of exceptional discounts up to 60% on tiles, sanitary, electrical, and lighting. From March 4th to 18th, you will be splurging. Batimat, welcome home.
Welcome back from that short commercial break. If you're just tuning in, you're watching QTV News, and I'm Jennifer Sonko. Now let's take a look at news beyond our borders. As hundreds of sub-Saharan African migrants are attacked or made homeless in Tunisia after a racist presidential speech last week, Guinea and Ivory Coast are repatriating hundreds of their citizens from the country, with other countries set to follow suit. More in this report.
President Said of Tunisia ordered security forces to take urgent measures against sub-Saharan African migrants, accusing them without evidence of causing a wave of crime and plotting to change the country's demographic makeup. Said and his government deny his remarks were racist. Said's remarks have sparked criticism from the African Union, Washington, and the European Union and other African countries, including Tunisians, who staged a protest against their president's remarks. The Tunisian foreign minister said authorities were trying to reassure sub-Saharan Africans and that there is no question of apologizing. He said, as the government hadn't attacked anyone. Ivory Coast national carrier Air Côte d'Ivoire is being tasked to assist in returning some 500 citizens, according to the Ivorian government spokesman Amadou Coulibaly, on announcing the launch of repatriation efforts. A Guinean foreign ministry official declared that they had leased an aircraft to bring home about 50 Guineans in Tunisia who said they wanted to return home. The president's office in Guinea issued a statement earlier saying that Foreign Minister Maurice Sanda Kouyaté was heading to Tunisia aboard a government aircraft to provide urgent support for Guineans there. Many of the estimated 21,000 sub-Saharan African migrants in Tunisia, most of whom are irregular, have lost their jobs and housing following the president's speech. There are reports that migrants have been stopped by police and some have reported physical attacks. Dozens have flocked to their embassies, particularly those of Ivory Coast and Mali, asking to return home. Several other countries have also announced repatriation flights for volunteer returnees. But there have been delays due to penalties the migrants must pay, which often exceed €1,000, an Ivorian diplomat said. Reporting for QTV News, I am Lena Igwenyuba.
Also in international news, Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission on Wednesday declared former Lagos State Governor Bola Tinubu the president-elect of Saturday's national presidential elections. Mohammed Balde has more.
Bola Tinubu, candidate of the ruling All Progressive Congress APC, won the election with 8.79 million votes. Atiku Abubakar of the People's Democratic Party PDP had 6.98 million votes, and Peter Obi of the Labour Party had 6.1 million votes, as announced by Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC). INEC's declaration of victory for Tinubu and the APC has been met with sharp criticism, with allegations of vote rigging and rampant voter suppression. Even prior to the official results being tallied and announced, members of the opposition parties, specifically the PDP, the Labour Party and the Alliance for Democratic Change, called for the election results to be deemed null and void. They also called for INEC's Chief Electoral Officer, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, to resign. Since the announcement, the Labour candidate Peter Obi has taken the necessary legal steps to contest the results in court. The election had the lowest voter turnout in Nigeria's history, with only 3 out of 10 Nigerians with permanent voter cards turning up to the polls. The final voter turnout was 25.7%. The lack of voters could be attributed to the high degree of insecurity in the country, which is only more prevalent as elections draw near. Over the last few weeks, there have been numerous incidents of violence at polls, with even members of the media falling victim to the violence. Understandably, citizens might be hesitant to fulfill their civic duty out of fear of their own well-being. This then raises the question of why more hasn't been done to address the insecurity to enable a smooth electoral process. Another cause for contention amongst political actors has been the introduction of a new electronic voting system intended to ensure transparency in the election process. The way the new system was advertised was that Nigerians would verify their identities through a machine at the polls, and once their vote has been cast, the vote would be uploaded onto a portal where it could be verified. However, unsurprisingly to many, the portal was not operational and none of the votes could be electronically verified as initially promised by INEC. For now, before the opposition will file legal action to challenge the results, Bola Tinubu's All Progressive Congress supporters are the ones rejoicing. Reporting for QTV News, I am Mohammed Balde.
Now let's take a look at what's happening in the world of sports. Gambia's under-20 football team are through to the semi-finals of the ongoing under-20 AFCON in Egypt. The young Scorpions stormed into the next knockout round after a ruthless demolition of the opponent South Sudan on Friday. More in this report.
Their performances in the group stages has marked out the young Scorpions as one of the teams to fear. They had won their 3 group games without conceding a goal, playing delightful and attacking football. They also demonstrated their strength and depth by resting 10 players for their final group game against Benin, which they dominated and won by a 1-0. Their quarterfinal went very much to expectations, with Gambia having ended the group stages as one of the tournament's favorites, while South Sudan qualified for the knockout stages as one of the best third-place teams. From the kickoff, it was clear the young Scorpions had taken on board the words of the coach, Abdoulaye Bojang, who said, "The group stage is history. A win will mean we qualify for the World Cup." The match was only 7 minutes old when Steve Biko forward Adama Bojang scored from just inside the area. The forward would go on to complete his hat-trick 40 minutes later. Fortune FC defender Moses Jaju made it 2-0 with a glancing header from Salifu Koli's corner in the 28th minute, and the match was effectively over as a contest by halftime as Adama Bojang got his second to make it 3-0 at the break. Despite some nice approach play by South Sudan, there were no match for the Gambian team, who pressed home their superiority as Adama Bojang completed his hat-trick in the 47th minute to make it 4-0. Substitutes Aliou Jiba and Mohamed Sawane were involved in the 5th goal, which was scored by defensive midfielder Mohamed Bajo in the 70th minute. The Gambia took their foot off the gas for the final 20 minutes, as their opponents never even looked like getting a consolation goal. The Gambia joined in the semis by neighbor Senegal. They are the only teams to have won all their matches at this tournament without conceding a goal. Both have now also sealed their World Cup places. Aldo Dele Campbell reporting for QTV News.
Now, congratulations to the young Scorpions. Before we end this news bulletin, here's a recap of the headlines. Following a public notice by NAWEC that the security lock to one of the water tanks in Basse had been broken and unknown substances dumped inside the tank, the company's communications and public relations supervisor, Buba Baji, has shed more light on the issue. QTV's Mamadou Lamin Choi is among 60 journalists from several countries around the world, currently in China for the 2023 China International Communication Center program. 45 law enforcement officers concluded training on Thursday on data quality and data protection in the use of the West African Police Information System. In international news, as hundreds of sub-Saharan African migrants are attacked or made homeless in Tunisia after a racist presidential speech last week, Guinea and Ivory Coast are repatriating hundreds of their citizens from the country. In sports news, Gambia's under-20 football team are through to the semi-finals of the ongoing under-20 AFCON in Egypt, and their win means they also qualify for the World Cup. Well, that is all we have for you in this edition of QTV News. Join us tomorrow for another bulletin. Thanks for watching and have a great weekend.